All right, it looks like most people have already joined now, so I think we should get going. So just in case anyone missed my first introductions, my name's Eben. I'm the customer lead here at Smileback. I've been at Smileback for quite a long time now, about 3.5 years, I think. And joining me is Yuria, who is actually our newest member of staff. She's been here for just about 4 weeks, Yuria. She's the customer associate. So if you have written in with a support ticket the last few weeks, you may have spoken to Yuria already, and you'll certainly be hearing more from her in the future. So we, together with the kind of full-time members of the customer team, so it's our job really to help you get the most out of your Smileback subscription, answer your questions, push out good ideas to you, let you know about, new features, which is of course what we're doing right now. So today we'll be talking about our newest kind of big integration or integrations. It's actually two for one. So that's the direct integrations with Slack and Microsoft Teams. Now, of course, these are popular pieces of software. Microsoft Teams in particular has, absolutely exploded over the last year with the move to working from home. So we were really glad to start being able to offer Smileback directly integrated with them because it was a very popular request. And people had already been using things like emails to channel or Zapier or other ways of making this kind of connection work, and we're now offering it directly. So just to go over the agenda, we'll actually start off a bit just by talking about, why would you want to share your feedback into your collaboration tools? What are the benefits of doing that? And how can it help your business? And Yuri is going to be contributing some ideas there. Then we'll talk about how to actually set up the integrations, and I'll kind of give you a quick walkthrough of it. And then we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. I've got someone from Tampa Bay, Florida here, so seems to be the home of not just ConnectWise, but almost everything related to IT and MSPs, it seems. All right, so as I said, we're going to talk a bit about, the kind of good practices, best practices around doing this, why it's valuable to start off with. So I'll talk a bit in general first. So why share feedback? Why share feedback inside your company and with your team? And actually, to get us going, we have a poll question about that you can kind of answer over the next few minutes while I'm talking. That should be popping up any second now. So let's start with the real basic, right? Feedback, it's information from your customers about how you're doing. And the great thing about Smileback, I think that kind of 99% of you are already Smileback customers. The great thing about Smileback is it gives you an easy way to collect loads of really good feedback from your customers. And we've got Csat, that's the survey that you send out when you resolve or you close a ticket, and people give you feedback on, that particular ticket. Yeah, I'm happy, I'm unhappy, I'm somewhere in the middle. And we have Nps, which is the survey you send out kind of at a time of your choosing and to an audience of your choosing. And a typical use for Nps is sending it kind of 2, 3, or 4 times a year to people like the main account contacts and the decision makers. And the benefits of this are, you want to know how your customers are doing, and by using a survey tool like Smileback and like other ones, is to get it in a structured way, right? And once you've got that data in a structured way, you can aggregate it, you can produce something like the net CSAT score that we have in Smileback, and you can start to say, right, we're doing really great this month, we're not doing so great. And you can look at the individual responses along with that kind of aggregate of, hey, we didn't do a good job on this ticket. What went wrong here? Now, by sharing that with your whole team and sharing that with people in the team, you can bring it into your existing business processes. So, you can build a workflow or build a policy around, we are going to survey our customers after every ticket that we resolve. That's a usual thing that people do with Smileback. And if people aren't happy, we will follow up with them, and we'll do that, in X hours, and we'll resolve it. We'll try and resolve it that day or within, say, 2 business days. But the good thing is that as well as those times where things don't go so well, you get a lot of good feedback. In fact, most Smileback customers, both with, especially with Csat and also with NPS, usually the majority of the feedback is good. You know, people are doing a good job. You're supporting your customers well, and it's great to know about that as well. So let's have a look at the results of that poll we asked. I'm just going to bring onto my screen here. So we asked, how often do you share customer feedback with your team? The most popular one in the poll was once a week, which is great. And I actually see in the chat that quite a few people are also saying actually more often than that. You know, we're doing it daily or we're doing it all the time. And I'm interested to see what, you know, people are mentioning some other software, collaboration software like Yammer and Clipfolio and that. And we can actually talk a little bit about that at the end. But Yuri, do you want to talk a bit about the benefits of sharing the Csat responses in particular?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, CSAT, or customer satisfaction rate, is giving you information of how well you are performing with certain request or case by the customer. So sharing this to the agent who is responsible for the case will give this agent or employee a chance to improve their overall performance. Also, by sharing this score to your employees, they'll have the chance to better understand the customer, to better understand their needs, and that will help them to gain more experience. And based on this experience, they can start identifying the issues better and even go further, like being more proactive and being able to prevent issue from happening. So it's a win-win situation for the customer, for the employee, and for the organization. Also, why it's so helpful to share this is because, as Eben already mentioned, when you receive a negative feedback, you have a chance to turn this unhappy customer into a happy one. And how you do that? By following up, by offering alternative solutions. And the positive feedback, it's really motivating. Everybody is happy to see like smiley faces, and they're happy to see that customers appreciate their effort. So giving this information to the employees and showing them how good they're performing will make them work harder to maintain this level and feel more happy, will drive them towards success. And that is, again, win-win situation. And lastly, it can help to set up goals for the team, for the organization, or even some personal goals for the employees. Like, for example, if you know that in the last month you got like 12 negative reviews, and you want to improve that score, let's say you set up a goal for the next month to receive not more than 10 or 8 negative reviews. So that is also really helpful.
Yeah. And to go along with Csat, we of course have our Net Promoter Score survey as well. You may have used that so far with us or with another provider. You may not have. If you're wondering what Net Promoter Score is, I'll explain quickly, but I'll also say that on our blog, which is blog.smileback.com, we have recordings of previous webinars we've done about that, and also some articles explaining Csat and NPS in depth. But Net Promoter Score is the survey that asks people to say how likely are they to recommend your company. You've probably got this survey from other providers or from, you know, brands you interact with in your kind of personal life, more, you know, more consumer brands. And it's a really good one, as I was saying earlier, for sending on a kind of a periodic basis. So once a quarter, once every 6 months, you know, sending it out to your key account contacts, decision makers, you know, other people who are important basically to the continuation of your contracts and the renewal of your contracts, especially. And you can use it to identify people who are really happy with your business that you can maybe help turn into promoters, get them to do case studies for you or ask them for referrals. And of course, people who are less happy. So, sharing NPS responses can be really useful, especially for your, if you have account managers or customer success managers, customer experience managers, people like that in your team who are kind of helping you to, manage ongoing relationships with customers, who help work on things like renewals, quarterly business reviews, any of those sorts of parts of the kind of account life cycle for your customers. So, sharing NPS responses means that just like with Csat, if you see someone is unhappy, you can follow up with them quickly. But it can also just be good to let the team, or at least part of your team, just kind of see the general rhythm of them as they come in and see like, okay, well, we're getting kind of 4 or 5 really happy ones for every unhappy one. That's something useful to know. Or we're getting loads of unhappy ones this month. It can give you a good way of getting a sense of what's going on quite immediately, along with the more periodic checking of these things. So just to tell you a bit about what we do in Smileback ourselves, we look at each review that comes in, both Csat and NPS, and if we see anything concerning, a negative or a neutral, or even just a comment that's kind of interesting and worth following up on any rating, we try and do that as quickly as possible. If it's a business day, I'll usually do it within as soon as I see it, or within an hour or two. And then, on the kind of longer time frame, we look at these things kind of weekly and monthly as well. So we try and get an idea of, are there any trends appearing, especially NPS? Each month we take a look at all of the reviews again from the whole month, even if we did already follow up to them and say, well, it's, now we can see like all of the less good reviews we got, a lot of them were all talking about the same thing. So here's an issue, let's do something about this. So what we're talking about today in this webinar is very much about and this brings us on to the next point about responding quickly. It's very much about the kind of immediate or like quick responses, but that isn't to say that the taking your time and looking back at these things in aggregate isn't important as well, and that's definitely something that other parts of Smileback, which we are focusing on so much today, can help you with. And yeah, just to look quickly at some of the questions here in the chat, or some of the feedback people are leaving. So yeah, people are talking about, happy customers, they're less likely to leave, and working with them to make them even happier, find out what they like about your business so you can keep doing that for them, and other people can help keep them for longer. Telling them to refer us can help grow your business further. So, if the person in your team is been keeping up to date with that through something like Smileback, you can really build that into a very robust business process. I see we've got also some quite specific questions about what to do with certain NPS responses. I can either get onto that later, or I will follow up with you individually. Yeah, so the next main point on here then is about responding quickly. And as I say, we try and get back to people, anyone who wasn't happy with how a ticket went, or who leaves an unhappy NPS response. We try and get back to them really quickly. So I have the feedback channel in Slack, kind of it's there every time it gets an update. If I'm on Slack at the time, I'll look at it, and I'm checking it, like at least a few times a day. Obviously, you have to balance these things out, right? If you're in the middle of a meeting, or you're focusing on like a detailed task, writing or something like that, you don't necessarily want to be having Slack open at the same time. But as I'm the customer lead, and it's kind of my responsibility, I check in several times a day. So that gives me a chance to respond to people quickly. And you know, I always try and do it within, if it comes in during the working day, it basically shouldn't be more than an hour or two, you know, before I see something and go back to them. And we try and, you know, if we don't get through to people immediately, that way we also follow up, you know, next day or a few days later to really try and close the loop. And as I say, that can be important even for happy responses, because sometimes they might say something interesting. Sometimes they might be happy in general, but they say, yeah, solve me, you know, help me with my initial query, but I really wish that X, like I wish I didn't have to ask in the first place, or I wished I could do this thing I was asking about. Especially for us as a software company, that kind of feature request can, even from a happy response, you can get something interesting there that you want to dig into. And there's probably examples of that in your own life. But I mean, Yuria, so before Yuria joined us, she's worked in customer support and customer success, you know, many other places. I mean, do you have anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, mainly focusing on how to share this feedback internally, because it's really crucial. I would say what I've noticed in my experience is like some managers are collectively selecting feedback from customers, then include it into their own feedback. And that's how they present it in feedback docs with their employees, with agents. Also, really often, managers are presenting the feedback during team meetings or company meetings. And by the way, there's an easy way to print out the report and include it in your presentation in Smileback. Maybe we can show that later. Also, as I said, they're discussing this during meetings, but these are like events that happen once in a week or once in a month, and they're not instant. That's why it's really important to have also another manner to inform your employees about the customer feedback, like more instant way. And as you shared already, we have in Smileback, we have a Slack channel for feedback. So I've noticed that that's really common, as well as the email notification. That's also something that could be set up in Smileback. Like the named agent can get the notification by email whenever they receive feedback. You can also select to inform them when the feedback is negative or positive, or any kind of feedback they receive.
Yeah.
So they are always aware. And of course, instant informing is it's crucial. We realize that, and that's why we have these new integrations now with Slack and Microsoft Teams. So I believe that this is the tendency. I've noticed this before and know how important it is. So we will present to you that in a minute.
Yeah, so we're primarily talking about Microsoft Teams and Slack today, but those, as Yuri says, those aren't the only ways of sharing your Smileback reviews. You know, we have email alerts, which you can set up with various filters. You can also set up it very simply now. We have an action for feedback to go to the named agent or agents. So you know, a review comes in from a ticket and it can go straight to the people who worked on that ticket who get named on the review. And you can do that with just one action now. You know, we have a connector with Power BI, which I know more and more of our customers have been using over the last kind of year or two. We have Bright Gauge. We also have an API that you can set up to work with basically anything. So yeah, so let's start getting into the detail though of how this works with Microsoft Teams and with Slack. So I am going to go to my browser now. So here is a typical Smileback account. Unfortunately, they only got one really bad review so far. To set up these integrations and anything else, you need to be an account administrator in Smileback. So at least one person in your company will be the account administrator, because that's the permissions that the user who set up the account gets, but you probably have more than one. So if I click on anything and you can't see those options on your screen, that will be about your permissions, basically. So you should check with your colleagues, and you can also write into us, and we can take a look. So from here, if you go into the top right, you'll see the name of your user account in the top right of the screen. And when you click on that, you'll see there's a down arrow next to it. You get the various configuration menus. So again, you may see less here if you don't have the full permissions. And what we want to do is we go to the integrations page. So all of the integrations live in one place. And what you say here might vary slightly depending on what ticketing system you're using. So I'm using an account that's set up to work with ConnectWise Manage, because I know that's what most of our users and probably most of the people on this call are using. So as I was saying, we have many different integrations now, but let's go down and we can have a look here at Slack and Microsoft Teams. So Slack is one that I prepared earlier, if there are any Blue Peter fans watching. But the way these work is the end result is quite similar. The way they're set up is slightly different. So Microsoft Teams is actually, you'll see that the button is just to learn how. So this, if you click this, it will take you through to our help center. So that will have both a link to where you need to go in Microsoft Teams, as well as the instructions. So we have full instructions with images and step-by-step how-tos in our help center. We've got the link for the help center. We could put it in chat now. We've got it at the end of the presentation as well. So with Microsoft Teams, you actually set it up from Microsoft Teams itself. So if we go over now, so here I am logged into Microsoft Teams in my browser, and we're in the Microsoft Teams App Store. The Smileback integration, you can see, is published here. So it's been, it's been tested, it's been checked out by Microsoft. It was quite a long process, but it is all published now. And if you click on it, you see you can open up some more information and see how it works. So then your next step is to click on Add a Team. You can then choose one of your teams if you've got more than one of them. And basically what you'll do then is you will be adding this app into the team as a whole. So you're setting it up as a connector. And as you can see, so for me, it's actually gone straight on through. If it's the first time you're doing it though, you will just see a screen asking you like telling you what it's going to share. And then let's configure that a bit. So there's a sort of a basic amount of information, what was the rating, what was the ticket number, that will be included by default. But what you can do is you can configure things like, do we want to display the email address in there or not? Do we want to share some of these kind of more details or not? Here we are, it's loaded up for us now, great. So when you're ready, you will save that. And you can save that, and then you will have now, as I say, you will have added this into your team. And I keep stressing this point because obviously Microsoft Teams, you've got the team and then you've got the channels. So what you do after that point is you then configure it with a particular channel. So I'm just going to click over into another tab here where I've already got this done. And as you can see here, inside of Microsoft Teams, you have this menu with 3 dots, and that appears next to each of the channels individually. So what that means is you can then choose, which particular channel are we going to add Smileback to, and you can then click on that. You open up the connectors, and then this is the point at which you then need to actually add Smileback into that particular channel, and you do that with the configure button there. And then the end result of it being that as you get each review coming in, they will appear here. Let me just scroll up to our test ones. Yeah, here we go. So as they come in, they will appear like this. Obviously, yours are going to be from real reviews. They're going to have kind of more varied and interesting information on them, of course. But you will first see a message that you have done this, and you will see a message if you remove it. And then as each review comes in, they'll appear as a new post inside the channel. A couple of people are saying it's not currently showing up in the Teams channel. That is odd because it was just there for me a minute ago. We'll have to look into this for you. One thing to note, if you are able to add it through the Teams store, but you then can't find it inside your connectors, or you have trouble adding it to your connectors, is you should check one, do you have admin permissions in Teams to add new connectors? And you should also check if you're allowing side-loaded apps, because it might need to be side-loaded, in which case you'll have to make that permission possible. I know this is a lot of information about the kind of intricacies of Microsoft Teams. This is all in the Help Center, and we will share that. Jillian's asking, can you put it into different channels? Yeah, you can add it through that menu there with the 3 dots. You can add it to more than one channel. And just take another question from Chris. Can we have filters into different channels? So right now, no, it will send all of the reviews. So if you set up Csat, it will send all the Csats. If you set up NPS, it'll send all the NPS reviews into the chosen channel. We know this has been a kind of a popular question. A few people have asked us over the last week or so. So we are aware of that, and that's something that we're going to look into doing, basically. So Katrin, if you want to actually share the Canny link in the chat. So Canny is our kind of public roadmap, and you can go on there and basically say that you're interested in using filters with this, and that'll also make us, you'll basically be emailed when we have kind of news on that. If you really want to do that filtering right now, you don't want to wait, you can actually do it with the email automation. It means that you need to use the Teams email to channel function with the Smileback email automations. And that way you can use the filtering options there. That's something that a few people actually worked out long before we had built this integration. I actually got this idea recently from talking to a customer who's telling me how they had done that. But if you want to get started with just kind of sharing it all in one place, let's say for your management to see, or your customer and account managers to see, I would say go ahead and use the dedicated integration, and then we'll look at giving you more options for filtering in the future. Yeah, and Katrin has just posted a link to something called Canny. So that is our public roadmap. So you can go there and basically upvote and say, hey, I want these filter options. Yeah, and someone, so thank you, Mark, who's just talking about, yeah, basically going into the admin portal and checking if you're kind of allowing this app. So there can be some issues, not exactly issues, just settings really, permissions in Microsoft Teams, which are meaning that it's not showing up for you in the connectors. Like I say, that we've got some information about that in our Help Center, and also if you get in touch with us, we can help you out with that as well. Okay, just looking for some other questions. When you mark reviews done, will it change the icon of Teams to smile back to the check mark? No, that's an interesting question though. So markers done, if you don't know what that means, is a feature inside of Smileback. So if you're looking at an individual review, let's say it's an unhappy one, we created markers done so you can basically change the appearance of it. didn't update immediately this time, but basically it's a way of you checking off and saying, yeah, we got back to these people. That isn't possible here right now, because these have basically been posted that it's a one-way. You know, Smilback is saying to Teams, hey, we got a new review, please display this information about the review in Teams. So it's, you know, it's then kind of time bound. So the marking is done. We wouldn't be able to go back, I think, to change the original message. We could potentially look at in the future possibly adding some kind of messages around things like marking as done or comments or other follow-ups. But you can, from these messages teams, you can click on view and Smileback. And also when you do this for real, you will see a second button that says view and ConnectWise Manage or view and Freshdesk, view and Zendesk, whichever ticketing system you're using. So that's helping, you know, we were talking earlier about closing the loop. And that's a great way of doing that. So, you know, if your account managers have got this open, they see an unhappy review come in, they can click and they can go and look at it in Smileback if you tend to work in Smileback itself, or you can go back to the original ticket if you tend to work there, which is obviously good for, you know, writing a follow-up message to people. All right. Yuria, did you have anything to add, or should we move on to Slack and then we can take more questions about that?
Let's move on to Slack.
Okay, great. Yeah, so just to go back to the integrations page then. So Slack is set up from inside Smileback itself, although it is actually published to published to Slack. Just the way it works is that you start from inside here. So this was already set up, but if I just revoke that, we'll then see how it looks, how it will look to you, which is that you can see here you've got a connect button showing. So we click on connect. You'll see again this message about, you know, do you want to allow it to work with Slack, and if so, which channel? So it's, you know, it's fairly similar to Teams, except that it doesn't have this two-step of team and then channel. It will just straight away, whichever Slack workspace you are logged into. Again, obviously you have to have the permissions to add new apps into Slack. It will go there. And I have made a channel just for this purpose called the integration demo. And then again, we see this information here. So you can choose, do you want to do Csat or Nps? And then which of the kind of optional information do you want to include or not include? And then when you're ready, you click done. And if I just bring Slack over onto the screen I'm working on now. Oops, here we go. Yeah, so you can see here, here's a couple of test ones I did already inside Slack. Obviously the formatting is a bit different, but it's the same kind of idea as what I was just showing you with Teams, and that, you know, it shows you who it came from, you know, if it was a negative or a positive. As I say, this information you can choose to display some of the further information if you want. Oh, catching this time, Slack is invisible.
Yes, Slack is invisible.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Let me just change my screen sharing. All right, can you see Slack now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. So here, this is Slack. So this is our integration channel where I've created a couple of test responses already. And as you can see, same kind of idea as Teams. You know, you see the information about the review, who it came from. You know, was there a comment? Was it a happy or an unhappy response? And then, like with Teams, you have these buttons that can quickly connect you back into Smileback or back into the ticketing system, so back to the actual original ticket it came from. And then that means that, again, as I say, it helps you to close the loop. And you will also get these messages just someone who added or removed this integration. And actually, on that, if you do want to remove this, you can do that, of course. You can go into the integration page in Smileback and you can revoke permissions there. If you're working on Teams, you go back to that connectors menu to remove it from a particular channel, or you go to your main Teams admin to just remove the app completely. All right, I see some questions. So Danny Chaplin asked, is there a guide for this? Yep, we have guides for both of these things. And I can actually just show you now. If we click the Learn How next to Teams, it'll take you through to our Help Center. That's at help.smileback.com. And as I was saying here, we have a kind of a step-by-step that has pictures of what to look for. And it also has some information about some of these slightly more things that can get a bit more complicated around if you need to make, if you need to enable certain options inside Teams, also what permissions you need inside Smileback. And then you can see here in this same section, we also have Slack. So if you're using Slack, we have an equivalent article, again, tells you what kind of permissions you need, and then it has a step-by-step and illustrated guide to doing the setup. All right, so if we go back, does, just present that again. All right, so this is now a good time for any more questions. We've been going for about 40 minutes, so thank you for your listening intently to us for this long, but we can stay around for another 10, 20 minutes to answer questions if you want. Just write them into questions and answers. So Danny is saying, don't see the Teams guide. Let's post that in the chat. Katrin, could you post the links to the Slack and to the Microsoft Teams setup guides that I shared earlier? And when we add this, if you're listening to the recording of this, those will be linked in the blog post below.
Evan, yes. I was thinking, while we're gathering some questions here, can we also show how to set up rules for email notification?
Yeah, let's do it. So if we go back into our Smileback account. Great, so we've got those links in the chat now. Yeah, so if we go back to Smileback, just to talk about some other options then, as I said, we have lots of different ways of sharing this information inside your organization. Once again, we're back on the reviews page here. And if I click up in the top right corner, you can then see there's this automation options, which are there for people who are admins. And you can add various rules in here. Let's talk about emails. So as you can see, it works as a kind of a recipe, basically. You can make it run that when a new review is received, that's the kind of one that's used most commonly, you can then take various actions. So the simplest one is just if you leave it on when a new review is received and send an email, just any new review, it will create an email and it'll go to the specified addresses. So for example, you could use the email to channel feature that's in Teams or Slack here. You could use it with, if there is some kind of thing that we're not yet integrating with, but has an email connector, you can do that way. But if we want to send it to people individually, let's say we want to do something like sending an email to agents when they get a new review, we have an action specifically for sending email to the named agents. So what it means is the engineer, the resource, the tech, whatever you call them in your company, the person who is on that ticket, that is the person who resolved it or put the most time in or was the assignee, depending on how you configured that. When a new reviews comes in, it will go to them. Which is neat. It's quite new. We only had this for a few more months before we made these integrations. Basically means that, if you have 50 texts, you don't have to set up a rule for every single one of them. You can just use this. And you can add filtering. So as I say, the way it's done currently, it will go to everyone, not to everyone, sorry, it'll go for any review that comes in. But if you want to only do positive ones, you can do that. Or if you want to do it only when it comes from a certain, so the segment is like the board in ConnectWise or the type in Zendesk, you can add optional optional filtering on this side of the ledger. Can we do both automation, saying to emails and also saying to Teams? That's a question from Steve. Yep, so you can set up a direct integration with Teams. You can set up an email alerts. You can set up various email alerts. You can use Teams and Slack at the same time. It's up to you. So you can set up multiple automations, and you can set up the integrations as well. You could also set up the Power BI connector. Basically, if it's a feature here in Smileback, you know, you can use it. I think we'd only have a problem if you set up if you set up 10,000 automations in one account, you might find that things start to slow down a lot. But other than that, no, you can use as many of these things as you want. And you know, the more you use, we definitely encourage you to go and play around. Like I say, you know, Teams and Slack are the new thing that we're talking about today, but we have a lot of other integrations in there, and we have other possibilities for the automations, and we even have an API. So if you want to get really, you know, really customize things, maybe even create your own, you know, bots or own connector for another platform, you can use the API credentials to do that. And those also live here, top right, click on your name, and you'll see the API credentials option. And Yuri, I think we actually had a poll, right? We were interested in some of the other places people are sharing their information. Could we get that on screen?
Yes.
All right, so we just shared a poll. I'll just read it out for everyone's benefit. So yeah, how do you share your customers' feedback internally? And then we've got a few different places: in a presentation, during meetings, team meetings, sorry, managers reviewing it and sharing it more directly with the responsible agents, or using an automation. So, you know, it's a multiple select, so please answer the poll, and you can also keep dropping questions or comments into the chat. And an interesting question about Google reviews. I can address that in a minute. I'll just see if we've got any more questions about about sharing the reviews internally first, but I will answer your question, Ashley. So yeah, that poll is going to be open a little bit longer. So please vote now if you didn't already. And like I say, do keep the questions coming. I can sit here and keep talking for, you know, a little while yet. So please do keep putting questions into the chat or into the Q&A. And the other thing is we can help you set up calls with us. Once the poll is over, Katrin, if you could share the Calendly link in the chat. All right, we got the result of that poll. So it looks like the most common option then where people are sharing customer feedback internally is in team meetings. So that's similar to what we do. You know, we have a weekly meeting of the customer team, and we review both the overall scores. So the CSAT score, we do that weekly. NPS, we do it monthly, and then we also talk specifically about anyone who wasn't happy, which does happen. We have a very good CSAT score, but even we make mistakes sometimes. And then after team meetings, it looks like the next two, both very popular options is sharing the feedback directly into your collaboration software, and hopefully more people are going to be doing that after today's webinar. And then in a close third place is managers reviewing and then sharing with their teams in particular. So as I was saying, we do that in the customer team here. We're a lot smaller. You know, we have two full-time members of our customer team, and we also get help from some other members of staff. So some of you might have spoken to Natan recently, who works across a couple of different departments here. But obviously, I know some of you are working in very large organizations where, you know, you might have several teams of 4, 5, 6 agents each. All right.
There's 34% of order. Please share your other ways of sharing your customer feedback internally.
Yeah. In Slack, so a question from chat here. In Slack, if we click on open and connect wise, will it open in the application or in the URL? I believe it will open in the browser. It'll open in whatever your default browser is. So if you can log into the ConnectWise portal that way. Yeah, and we've shared the Calendly link. So if you're not familiar with Calendly, it's basically a calendar booking service. That means that you can put in a meeting, choose a time that works for you and put in a meeting that will be with me or Yuria. So please do go ahead. Like I say, we're very happy to, have a meeting to discuss more about setting you up on Teams or Slack, whichever you're using. But, if you have any other things you want us to look at, like automations, Google reviews, the API, go ahead and book it. We've got here on the screen our main support email address, help@smileback.com. That's our main ticketing support tickets. That's what me, Yuria, Natan, occasionally other members of the team, we work on that all day long, replying to those. And the main address for our help center at help.smileback.com. But I just wanted to answer a question from Ashley about another topic, because I think it might be relevant to some other people here in the webinar. So if you want to talk about Google reviews, I'll stick around for a few minutes and I'll do that now. So let me just explain a little bit about the Google reviews first. I can actually go back and Smileback to help us do this. So something we introduced last summer was a new feature for basically to help you with your marketing. And that is that inside your Csat or your Nps survey setup, there is now an option to enable Google reviews, and then it's asking for a link here. What this means is if you might be aware already, if you have your business listed on Google, but if you haven't gone through the process, it's quite quick. You can now set up a sort of official business profile with something called Google My Business. So that allows you to manage the kind of listing information for your business that appears in places like Google Maps and in searches. You can put your, make sure your best photos on there, your URL, your opening times. You can keep all that up to date through it, which is great. But they also have an option inside that Google Business dashboard to get a link to ask people to review you. So, if you look up something on Google Maps, or if you type the name of a particular business into Google, and you get the that kind of information box, it'll have a star rating, right? And it'll have comments written by Google users. So this is a link that basically sends people directly to give you a new review. And like I say, you can find outside Google, and you'll see there is a link here on our page, which tells you how to go and get that. When you add that in, anyone who is happy, so anyone who gives you a green face on Csat or a 9 and 10 on Nps, if you're using that, they will see an option there. I'm just going to have to put in a kind of generic email address just for demonstration purposes. But anyone who's happy will see the option to say, hey, I want to share my feedback about this company with, on their Google page. So as you can see here, we've got the comment page. It'll obviously have your company's name, your company's logo. Where they already clicked the green face, that got saved, with their ticket details. You'll be familiar with that. They can write a comment. If they tick this, when they click submit, rather than just landing on the normal thank you page, they will instead go through to that Google URL that you shared. So they will be taken through to your listing on Google, and not only to the listing, but it'll pop open a new review box for them. And we have a Help Center article about this, which has an illustration of how it looks and a video about it as well. So yeah, the question from Ashley is kind of about getting people to kind of convert and actually do it. So there are limitations on this from Google. We can't kind of zap the comment in a review directly into Google itself. What we do is we drive people who want to go there, people who tick this box, we drive them through to that page, and we try and make it as easy as possible for them. So they will land on a page, and it'll pop open a new review for them. If they're already logged into Google, especially if they're on their phone, it's quite likely they'll already be logged into Google. They can just straight away, write a review in. They can even paste the comment that they put into Smileback. That will be put on their clipboard, or they can type a new one. They hit 5 stars and they post it. There can be a step if they're not logged into Google where they'll have to, add their name, because Google want basically reviews to come from someone with a name, someone who Google knows who they are. That will prove a barrier to some people, but I would say, having talked to customers who are using this and looked at the Google profiles of customers who are using this, it does work. When you start using it, you will start to see more Google reviews. It might be quickly, it might be more gradually, but over a couple of months, you'll start to see that you're definitely getting more Google reviews. So I hope that kind of explains a bit more about that and puts your mind at ease. But if you want to ask us more about that, please do write into to us, help@smileback.com, or use that Calendly link for the chat. It looks like there's a few more questions in the Q&A, which I'll answer now. So Cheryl Anderson, you're saying you still can't see that connector. If you write in a ticket, and we can take a look at this together, and we'll help you figure that out. And then Alexandria asked, could you use Zapier and Teams to use filtering for channels? Yes, you can. So we have got a Zapier integration. If you're not familiar with Zapier, it lets you build your own automations that connect different apps together. So the one for Smileback, if we go back to the integrations page here in the Smileback app, if you go there and follow this connect button, or this link to the help center, that will tell you how to get access to Smileback's Zap trigger. So when a new CSAT review comes in, you can make it go to Zapier, and then Zapier has connections to literally thousands of apps. So you can post it to Teams, you can save it in a Google sheet or an O365 Excel sheet. You can filter it, you can do all sorts of different things with it. So yeah, great question, Alexandria. I'm a big fan of Zapier. Yeah. Okay, looks like that was all that was in the Q&A for the time being. I think we will start wrapping up now, but we've got one more. Okay, thank you, Steve. You're very welcome. Yeah, it looks like the questions are kind of slowing down now, so I think we'll wrap up. I just want to, one more time, for anyone who is still watching, go back here and just encourage you to please get in touch. We're very happy to talk to you. So help@smileback.com, that's where you write in with any questions, help.smileback.com. That is our help center with articles about all things Smileback related. You can get us on the Calendly link. You can book a meeting with us directly that way, and we'll be adding. We'll turn this into a probably edited. We've gone on quite long and covered lots of options, which is great. But we'll do a bit of an edit, and we'll also get this up on our blog and our YouTube channel. And yeah, you're all very welcome. Thanks for the nice messages in the chat. And I'm sure I'll speak to you, many of you, or Yuri will speak to many of you soon. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for myself as well. I just want to say that, as we mentioned at the beginning, our main goal of our team is to make you extract the most value from our products. So whatever question you have, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are there for you. And I'll be happy to see you.